So I got the forge running. No fancy intro today, nothing crazy. We're gonna make a tool. We're actually gonna modify a tool that I started working on. It was an earlier attempt at making a hand fuller, but I'm not gonna really get into that here. It's cold in my shop. We're about, I don't know, I shouldn't say cold. It's probably about 20 degrees or so in here. So I'll grab the tool, bring it over here, and I'm gonna kind of explain and elaborate what we're gonna be doing with it. Alright, I found it. I moved it from the face of the anvil and placed it somewhere like I always do. Can't wait until I get this place organized and heated. That'll be awesome. But this is a tool we're gonna modify. It's kind of already almost in the shape that we want, but first thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna heat this up. I'm gonna try and heat up just this end. We're gonna strike from the top, and that's called upsetting, and that's gonna increase the amount of material we have here. The reason why I want more material there is when we're using this, that's what we're gonna hit on the end with a hammer. And then down here, I'm gonna reheat this end. I'm gonna straighten this out, and then we're gonna kind of flay it out, and we're gonna try and create a crescent moon. And we're going to put an edge on this, and this will function as a slitting chisel, and it'll also function well for putting like the veins in the leaf on the last project that we did. So once I get the anvil heated up a little bit, we'll start doing this. It's frozen stiffer than a wedding prick. Might have to do something about that. Almost forgot to grab my safety squints. So we got the end upsetted enough. One of the reasons on top of functionality that I wanted to do that is the other thing is I don't have a set of tongs that are perfectly sized for this material. This is 5160. I do believe it's like 3/4 of an inch in diameter, maybe even an inch. Not exactly sure. Not that important. But now what we're doing is we're going to work on this end. Working it already, you can maybe see it's mushroomed a little bit just from upsetting. What we're going to do now is I'm going to heat this end, and then I'm going to try and dome that out into a crescent, and then try and do a rough bevel with just hammering so we can actually get our slitting chisel ready. So we got our shape mostly roughed in. Next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this in one last time. I'm going to pull it out, let it cool off, put it back in, pull it out, let it cool off. And what that's called is normalizing. It's going to soften any hardness that is in here, and also it's going to make it easier for us to grind and dress and clean up. I'll get my belt sander set back up while I'm doing this, because I haven't put it back to where it was since we did the whole cleaning adventure. This is cooled off enough to where I can handle it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the belt sander here. We're going to clean up our edge, make it nice and round. We're also going to clean up here a little bit, and then we'll go back to the forge. We'll straighten her out and probably harden her. So y'all get the point. I'm going to keep going on after this. You might be wondering wondering why I'm showing me putting something in there that's not what we're working on. But there's a method to my madness. Like I mentioned earlier, it's about 20 degrees in my shop. That means my quenching fluid, which is just a mixture of different types of oils, leftovers, things like that, that's also at 20 degrees. Now, I'm not exactly sure on the science, but it's basically it has to deal with how viscous or how thick your material is, or not material, your fluid is, the properties of it, all that fun stuff is going to dictate how it conducts heat. Now, we got this bad boy all prepped up, and next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little light forging on it, a little bit of straightening out. But the purpose of that is I'm going to get that good and hot, and then I'm going to throw it into my oil quench tank to try and bring the temperature of that fluid up so there's less thermal shock to our chisel here, because you can crack and or shatter your steels if you make them too hard. They get too brittle, and what's happening is like the hardness is let's see if I can get this right. So it's a crystalline structure that, here, I'll get away from the forge. So let's see if I can explain this without sounding like a complete imbecile and completely incompetent. So what it is the molecular structure of steel is actually more of like a crystal, okay? And depending on what state it is in, whether it's normalized, annealed, hardened, tempered, all that fun stuff is going to change the way those crystalline structures work together. And all steel is it's iron with some carbon in it, and the carbon content dictates its hardness. That's why we have different grades of steel: mild steel, low carbon, mid carbon, high carbon, tool steel, all that fun stuff. And what ends up happening is you heat it up so everything relaxes and it expands, and the carbon molecules can kind of wander around and do their thing. Well, when you cool it down, the crystalline structure comes back together, and the carbon finds spots to sit and stay in, and that's gonna dictate your hardness. So the faster you cool it down, the less chance or less opportunity the carbon molecules have to go somewhere where the iron's relaxed and the carbon's kind of relaxed. And if you cool it down fast, the iron locks. Let's see if I can demonstrate this. So this is our carbon. The iron, if it's nice and loose, the carbon's gonna go wherever it wants. But if you do it nice and fast, the iron locks around it, creating tension, okay? And that tension is what gives us our hardness of the steel. So if we quench it too fast, because keep in mind, everything's under stress. That's what hardness is. It's the molecular stress of our material. And we quench it, and it makes it nice and hard. Well, if you quench it too much or make it too hard, those stresses give way, because something's got to give, and you can get cracks and you can get shatters and things along those lines. But if you do it right, you lock it, you get a decent hardness, but you still have a workable tool. And what you can do on top of that, and this is, we're hardening, right? The next thing would be is that we go to temper, and what that does is it helps relax it a little bit more while still maintaining hardness. Really? Sorry about that, the camera went all fucking kittywampus with the focus. So, like I was saying, is think of it like tempered glass, so like your back glass on your car. It's pretty stout, fairly rigid, and it's definitely strong, but just a certain enough stress and the whole thing shatters, right? Well, if you heat it up and you relax the outside surface tension of it, or just the tension within it, then it becomes a lot more malleable, it becomes flexible, but it can still retain that hardness. That's where we get things like leaf springs or watch springs. It's like it's a hardened steel, but it's tempered back, and it gives it a bit of springiness. It allows it to flex a little bit, okay? Hopefully that made sense. Maybe it's clear as mud. And I don't know how well you're gonna be able to see it. You see right there on that very edge, on both sides, I think that's the beginning of a stress crack. So we'll find out when we go to hardness whether or not she just gives up the goods and lets go, or holds together, and that's just, you know, oxidization from being in the forge. Drop that piece of steel in there and it's starting to look like it's the 1960s and 1970s in here due to the fog. Jeez. So here we are. Sorry about my breath fogging up the video. She didn't crack on us, but let's see if she hardened up. So the front of this should be, well, hear how it's ringing? Oh. Right? So take a file on the back edge here. Hear that? Okay, it's biting in a little bit. Let's see how the front end sounds. She's not perfectly hardened, but I think all in all, I can't complain too much. So what I'll do here is I'll set this up in my post vise and do a little bit of, oh Jesus, surprise visitor. All right, so we got this bad boy all said and done. We'll think of a project here in the future that we'll use this on. I'm thinking the best candidate will actually be to use our tomahawk drift and make a tomahawk, and we'll start that. Use our slitting drift, or our slitting chisel here, slit it open, and then use our tomahawk drift to slit the tomahawk open. This is a project I've been meaning to do for a while because I actually went out and pre-bought some handles. So I got some 4140 sitting over there in the corner. I think that's what I'm gonna do next. So I'll get this edited, I'll get it uploaded. It's Tuesday. I'm gonna bet you guys will probably see it here on Wednesday, which is the 6th, I think it is. So have a good one, you guys, and fabric cobble on.